Hello and welcome back. For this video, I will be showing you 3 different shaker cards using this pizza die set from My Favorite Things stamps. It is no longer available, but I did find a similar one and I listed it below. To start, I cut out the crust and cheese from the die set. I also cut out a circle from a layered die set that is roughly the same size as the crust. This will be the back. As I color the crust, I'm keeping the darker shades towards the outside edges. This is just to help achieve that cooked look. You know, the edges are usually darker. I'm also going to add random spots, as when pizza crust cooks, it tends to bubble up and parts get darker. Plus, adding random dots gives the appearance of texture. I did find that the darker colors were just a little harsh looking to me, and I do go back over with the lightest color to try to blend that out just a little bit. The spots didn't bother me, however, so I wasn't really trying to blend those out too much. I will say one of my issues, I think, was that my pizza components were separated and I had a hard time determining what was really too dark and what wasn't. For this piece, it's my cheese. Again, I'm keeping the darker edges around the outside and the lighter ones in the center. And same thing here, I am going to add little spots. I actually thought the pizzas that I did with more spots on the cheese looked a little better, but they will be somewhat covered with shaker bits. Now moving on to that big circle that I cut out, I'm using shades of red and brown. The brown is just to add a little bit more depth and color. And I don't need to color the entire circle, so I'm actually only going with the outer part of the circle because the inside will be covered with the cheese and even part of the outside will be covered with the crust. So I laid down my lightest color and now I'm taking my mid-tone and I am making all kinds of dots and little squiggly, scribbly marks. I wasn't trying to be precise with this, I was trying to be very random. And then I added the brown just in dots here and there on the mid-tone color, and then I blended that back out. So for my pepperonis, I am using the exact same colors as I used for my pizza sauce, and the technique's similar to everything else I've done. Darker on the outside, some spots, and for my shaker bits, I did make sure that they are two papers thick, and I made sure that the outer edges were covered completely because I didn't want any white bits to show. Alright, now these are my little onions. I made them like the little purple onions. And for my olives, I'm just doing some warm grays. I tried to keep it a little bit lighter in the center and darker on the outside. I don't really know that it's super noticeable once it's in the shaker, but I did that. If you guys haven't gathered by now, I do more than I really have to most of the time. Alright, now I showed you YG05. That was my mid-tone. I did not use it because these are tiny. Like, I knew going into it that this was probably going to be ridiculous, but I still pulled it out anyway. And I didn't need it, so... And sorry for a lot of this, it ends up off screen because I had it zoomed in so much. My area to work on was very small. My mushrooms, again, very simple. I did pull out 3 colors, but honestly, you only needed 2. And here are my finished paper bits. Now I am gluing my cheese flat to my sauce, or the back crust, whatever. I have this acetate. I have lined my outer crust with score tape. And then I'm just attaching the acetate to my crust. And here I have used very thin strips of foam tape. I think this was double layers. And I have used the anti-static powder tool on the inside of the window and around the edges of the foam tape to make sure that my paper pieces don't get stuck. I've decided to cut my little bell pepper pieces just because that's usually how they are on pizza. And I really probably could have added more shaker bits into this one, but I didn't. So here we are. I'm adhering this down. If there's any extra bits hanging off the side, you can always trim those down. I actually did that off screen with 2 of the 3, I think. Moving on to the clay shaker bits. I don't love the onions. I actually don't love the bell peppers, although I did adjust the bell peppers later. But I try to keep everything very simple. This is a shaker card. It's not meant to be perfect. I mean, there's a lot of elements, and most people just throw cards away after a while, which is sad to think about how much work you put into it. See, I even used my glue tube to roll out my clay. Alright, so this, I'm trying to cut out mushroom shapes. And in order to do this, I rolled out my clay and I took a small circle cutter and I pushed part of it into the clay, and the other side is more of just a indentation. It didn't cut all the way through. And then I cut down from that part and make the little stem. Now you do kind of see where the cutter was. You kind of have to blend that out a little bit with your fingers. It looks harder than it is. You just got to get a feel for it. And if your clay is too soft, it is best to just set it to the side and wait for it to come back to room temperature a little better. I do go in later and fix the mushrooms just a little bit more. Alright, now I have 2 shades of green clay that I'm going to use to make my bell peppers. Again, I think they were too chunky. They reminded me of some kind of weird Lucky Charms rainbow or something, but only green. I don't know. I didn't love it. I tried. This was not attempted before I got it on camera. Like, this was my first attempt. And I've done miniatures in the past, but I don't know, they weren't this big. They were much smaller, and you can get away with more imperfections in a very tiny thing because it's hard to see anyway. Your brain just accepts it for, you know, what it's supposed to be. Alright, black olive, super easy. Roll some clay out, use a little circle cutter or something circular, and then take a toothpick and poke a hole through the center. Again, sorry, a lot of this ended up off screen. I'm very annoyed with myself. I did forget to mention that my onions, I actually used a translucent and a white clay. I mixed them a little bit and tried to get a more oniony look. It didn't really work. My translucent clay wasn't good anymore. It was pretty hard. Alright, now I've mixed some red and brown clay together to make my pepperonis. These are super simple. Roll your clay out, cut bigger circles. I'm taking my toothbrush, not my toothbrush, but my clay toothbrush, and I'm going to go ahead and put texture on the top of those. And now I'm just taking my mechanical pencil and I am pushing in parts of the mushroom right next to the stem. And here, busting out my chalk pastels again, I am dusting my pepperonis with some brown, and then the tops or backside of my onions I am using a pinkishy red color, pinkishy purple, I don't know. I tried to find a color that I thought looked like the onions that are usually on pizza. For my mushrooms, I found this like brownish gray color that I thought worked really well, and I'm just dusting a little bit of the mushrooms to give them some added texture and color. After that, I bake them to package instructions, and now I have my, what will be a pizza box. Now, I can't remember the exact dimensions for this. Basically, you're just taking the measurement of your pizza. Oh, real quick, the rounded alphabet, I cut out some letters to spell the word pizza to put on the top of my pizza box, and I'm just going to glue that down flat. Back to the pizza box, though, it's just a rectangle that has been cut out and scored in some places, some little pieces cut out. I will put the measurements in the description box so you can kind of get an idea for how to create it. Now, if you guys want to see a tutorial on this specific thing, there are probably tutorials on YouTube and just the internet in general for a similar box. And if you guys really want one for me, I can do one. It's going to be probably a little short video. I'm not perfect at it. This was just my first time making one. So I wing a lot of things on camera. Sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't. So this one I did have a few issues, and I will say that the lid of the box does close, but because it's pretty much the exact same size as the bottom, it does not close well. So I would recommend making that just a hair shorter. And here I am, just figuring out what parts I need to adjust. It was a learning process. So that might be the case for you guys too. Or you might have a die that already makes something similar, and that would be awesome. And now I need to make a pizza cutter. So I found this die that I thought would work in this Swish and Pop pull tab from Fawn. And I cut one of those out. Actually, I cut two. I made two of these. But one for one pizza cutter. A circle, this Queen Sheba Silver embossing powder, my Versamark ink. I'm just covering the circle and the pull tab piece in my ink and embossing powder because I did not have silver cardstock. I've already used it all up. I had gold. I didn't really think a gold pizza cutter was going to look right. Alright, so now I'm just figuring out what all I need to do. So I'm going to attach this little handle piece to the wheel. And now I actually need to make like a real handle. So in order to do that and get it to look symmetrical, I decided to take this copy paper, kind of trace out the shape I wanted, fold it in half, cut the whole thing out, and then I can use that to trace it onto the cardstock that I actually want to use so that I can cut out a fairly symmetrical shape for my handle. Funny thing is, I never actually used that much of the handle on any of my cards, so I really could have done without most of this. But I didn't really know what my card was going to look like to start with. So here I am, wasting my time for the most part. I make two of these. I only show one on screen, but they were the same. Now that my handle is cut out, I decided I needed to add a little bit of shading to it, so I just found a green marker that kind of went with my cardstock, made some lines on it. That was pretty much it. Now I have this red gingham paper, and I thought it reminded me of a tablecloth. You know, I could see it being Italian kind of thing, you know, red, green, white. So I used that. It's actually going to be featured on all my cards. So I now need to get more red gingham patterned paper because I ran out. I tried to make each one of my cards a little bit different. I didn't know what I was doing when I was doing this. Like, I really didn't. And I stayed up until almost midnight working on these. And that's a big no-no for me because I do have to get up with my kids. And they tend to get up by 6 o'clock in the morning. And less than 6 hours of sleep, just, it's not for me. I need my full 8 hours. So, I didn't realize it was that late, though. My late night crafting does tend to lead to a lot of mistakes and things not being as carefully thought out as they normally are. For my sentiments, I use a couple of different stamp sets, and the first one is Pizza My Heart from Fawn. Now, there is another Pizza My Heart stamp set. It's the sentiments that My Favorite Things released that is no longer available, that coordinates with the pizza die set. Anyway, I'm stamping everything out on, or not on, with jalapeno ink from Fawn. I wanted them all to coordinate. Now, for the sentiments, because I am using things that you can't get anymore, I mean, I guess maybe you could find something on eBay or somebody selling it, but My Favorite Things has retired it. You can just use, you know, alphabet dies or whatever to make your custom sentiments. So, just keep that in mind. It's not as quick and easy. But here's the other stamp set I was talking about. This sentiment will be going on the card with the pizza box, so I do not actually need the word pizza. I'm also not going to stamp the words my and heart. So I stamped what I wanted. You can see that was the mess up I had. I have quite a few of those off camera. Well, they're off camera because I usually delete the footage. I'll still tell you about it though. But I cut that out with a sentiment label die, and then I added a green border around it. I then just quickly wrote my heart and made a heart on the inside of the pizza box. I wanted it to look more handwritten. It's not that pretty because my handwriting is rather atrocious. I can draw to some extent and I can color things, but my handwriting, not so great. Alright, now I'm just adhering everything down. I do attach my pizza box to the card with score tape just because it is a very strong tape. So the sentiment for this card is, I love you with every pizza, my heart. And then I'm going to attach my little pizza inside the box. I chose the sequin shaker pizza for this one. This is just in case you don't want to make all your little pizza components, then, you know, shaker bits is an easy way to go. Now, I am doing another sentiment. This is actually one from that stamp set that is discontinued. But instead of using that whole sentiment in one part, I decided to find I'm thankful for you in a different stamp set, stamp that on the front, and then stamp and pizza on the inside. So the whole sentiment is I'm thankful for you and pizza. Now as I'm adhering things down on this card, I realized that it looked like it needed a little extra something. So I took some of my extra pizza toppings and then I am just scattering them here and there on my card base, especially around the sentiment because the sentiment was fairly small and it looked like there was a lot of white space there. So just filling that up with my extra pieces. And now you'll see I don't really use the handles too much. It's just barely anything for my pizza cutters because they get cut right off. Now coming back to my sequin shaker card, I am attaching more sequins onto the card base because I felt like it could use a little extra something too. And I tried not to go overboard with it, and I tried to make it more in a diagonal stripe. I don't know if that was a good decision, a bad one. It's one I made, so I'm sticking with it. Alright, now here are my 3 cards completed. All shakers. You guys know I love shakers. So which card of the 3 is your favorite? I really can't pick. I think my husband chose the no matter how you slice it card because he thought the pizza looked bigger, which I thought was cute because they're all the exact same size. My son really likes the pizza box, and I'm undecided. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll be back with another video soon. Bye!